Hello and welcome to the eSporter, the place for your latest scoops on esports. This is our very first episode of RLCS Weekly Reviews. We're currently in week 4 and we're going to jump straight into it with NA's first match of the week, which is Ghost versus Flight. The score ended up being 3-1 and it was a very dominant performance from Ghost overall. Flight looked to fight back early in the series when they made it 1-1, but then Ghost woke up in the third game and just steamrolled Flight after that point. Flight is still looking like they are very reliant on individual plays and they just simply are getting outperformed because of it. Ghost seem to be at least as good as Flight mechanically, if not better anyway, but then also pulled off some insane passing plays on top of that to put that final nail in the coffin for Flight. Mist also just proving that Ghost swapping memory for Mist was a very good move. Next up was a very comfortable win for NRG 3-1 over Rogue. NRG brutally scored 5 goals in the first 2 games against Rogue, which looked to kill the morale of Rogue despite Rogue managing to win the 3rd game of the series. Also, Wunder just looking quite strong overall in offense for Rogue, however he also made a lot of very stupid mistakes on defense which ultimately cost Rogue the entire series. Also, as a final note for this series, Turbo really just popped off incredible, and he also ended up scoring an incredibly weird flip reset goal that only he could ever really pull off. The next matchup was Ghost versus SONIQS, and in the previous Ghost game, if you were paying close attention, you might have noticed that all the Ghost players had IWNL in their usernames. In case you have no idea what that stands for, like me and Julian didn't, it stands for I Will Not Lose, which unfortunately Ghost could not live up to since they lost this amazingly entertaining series to SONIQS 3-2. There's so much to say about this series that I can't say it all here, but all of Ghost popped off in this matchup and looked like the stronger team for most of the series. It went all the way to overtime in the 5th game for the best of 5 series, and 40 seconds into the overtime, Atomic made a fantastic play to get the ball to Illusion right in front of the net. However, Atomic then landed in front of Illusion's pretty poor shot and then saved it. Then a few seconds later, SONIQS managed to get the ball into Ghost side of the field and Shock ended up scoring from a fairly simple shot because Illusion ends up coming off the wall for no reason and landing right in front of Mist, which then blocked Mist from saving Shock's shot and finally winning the series for SONIQS. Next is Rogue's second match of the night, which they ended up losing 3-0 to EUNITED. Rogue looked just as bad against EUNITED as they did against NRG, if not worse. They literally almost got perfectly swept. They were 1 goal away from getting perfectly swept against EUNITED. Overall, a low scoring series, and the games were close in scoreline despite it being a 3-0 sweep. It felt like EUNITED was always in control, but it felt like it was more because of Rogue's poor offense than because EUNITED actually played well. The very shaky looking PITTSBURGH Knights was up against Space Station Gaming in the next series, which they ended up losing 3-1. Overall, it was a very strong performance from Space Station Gaming, however PITTSBURGH Knights just seemed to not be on the same level as them, but they were instantly defeated in the next game and it secured the victory for Space Station Gaming. Right now, AJ just seems to not be gelling with Rettles and Gyro very well. They're playing well enough to be classed as a mid-RLCS team, however they definitely don't look to be a top team in Rocket League right now. Following that game, it was G2 versus Cloud9, which G2 ended up winning 3-1. There's not much to say about this series except that Cloud9 looked the worst that they ever have, and I mean ever. G2 just kept the pressure on Cloud9 all series long, never really letting Cloud9 breathe. Even in game 3 that Cloud9 actually won, they looked like the weaker team and managed to just barely sneak away with the win in the final 30 seconds of the game. I feel bad for any Cloud9 fans right now because there is simply nothing good to say about any of Cloud9's performances lately. Also, they suddenly showed Arsenal's highlight at the wrong time. I'm not too sure why. But yeah, that's something that happened. Now to wrap things up for NA for his 2 big overtime goals that he made in his series, making big plays when it really matters. And as a side note, he's the 3rd player ever in RLCS history to receive 2 Player of the Week awards in the same season. Swapping the continents, we're going to jump straight across the Atlantic Ocean into the EU games, with the first being VELOCE versus Singularity. It was a solid game by VELOCE. They ended up winning the series 3-0. They looked like the dominant team all the way through the series. Singularity had Noli score a nice goal in the first game, but that was their only goal for the entire series and they just looked outclassed overall. I think Veloce's defensive playstyle is just a very bad matchup for Singularity, who work better against more risk-style teams. After that game, next up was the French powerhouse Renault Vitality versus AS Monaco, which Vitality ended up winning 3-1. AS Monaco won the third game and looked to try and mount a comeback. However, Vitality just shut them down in the fourth game to win the series. Then K-Dop and Fairy scored this absolutely insane goal.
All three players, the pitch is in. Oh my god!
Veloce's second game of the night was up next against Endpoint, which they ended up winning 3-1. Endpoint was looking better as a team, however it still just wasn't enough to take down. Endpoint actually managed to get better stats, mainly due to Endpoint's 5-1 win in the first game, but Veloce still managed to win the series overall, which is all that matters in the end. Then, it was Reciprocity versus Barcelona, which I'm sure all of you have probably already heard about this game, if you are interested in RLCS at all. It was 3-1 to Barcelona. Flakes has decided to play the Proteus this week, and he managed to actually score a Musty flick in game 2.
I'm sure.
I'm here.
Time open. 1v1. Oh, let's go, dude! You're fucking nuts! Holy shit! Get out of here, dude.
Deevo managed to get an insane 10 saves in game 3, but Barca still ended up losing that match to make it 2-1 to Barca in the series. Barca won the fourth and final game with a goal 22 seconds into overtime. Shocked everybody because of how incredible Reciprocity was playing the series. They had a 53 shots to Barca's 18, and Barca ended up getting 39 saves in 4 games. That's almost 10 saves per game. It's one away. Reciprocity scored only 4 out of the 53 shots. Reciprocity looked very good in this series. However, Barca managed to just get the steal of a lifetime with some incredible defensive plays from Deevo's to take the series. Monaco's second game of the night was up next against TSM, which they ended up losing 3-2. It's quite a slow series from TSM and Monaco. However, TSM came away with the win in a close series. Ignite had a few big plays for Monaco. It looked like he really wanted to win this series against his former team, however he just couldn't pull it off in the end. The final game of the day was Dignitas versus Mouse ESPORTS. Mouse won the first 2 games, and then Dig in overtime won the third game with a very good passing play to start a counter-attack. Then Scrubkiller got an insane save in the fourth game, but Mouse still ended up losing that match to Dignitas regardless. This gave Dignitas a ton of momentum going into the 5th game of the series, and despite Mouse's valiant attempt, they simply could not stop Dignitas at this point. The final game ended after a 4-minute 37-second overtime goal because of Astro's fantastic air dribble. This meant that Dignitas barely retained their undefeated title despite Mouse's very strong attempt to take it from them. If you haven't already, I highly recommend watching this series. It was incredible. To wrap up the end of VU, we'll cover the player of the week, which was of course Deevo for his 20 saves in 4 games. Which is 5 saves per game average, which is just absolutely insane.
Alright, Corey, now you can get a sip of water while I show the leaderboards to end up this week's episode of RLCS Review. Looking at NA's leaderboard, G2 is leading with 4 wins and no losses so far. NRG, the world champions, are in the second place with 4 wins and 1 loss. 1 game more than G2. But is G2 gonna be able to hold back NRG in their next game? As of bottom of the leaderboard, Flight is struggling in NA this season, as well as Rogue and surprisingly Cloud9 for the 2nd season in a row. Now to Europe's leaderboard. The RRS teams are actually leading the leaderboard if you flip it upside down. But the actual leader of the leaderboard is Dignitas with 4 wins and no losses so far. Veloce is actually still doing surprisingly well as they take the 2nd place in the leaderboard with 4 wins and 1 loss only. These 2 losses that they took were consecutive. But are they gonna go for the hat-trick next week? I don't know. And that's what we're gonna see next week in RLCS Review and in the next episode of the East.